The candidates running for Rockwell Independent School District Place 1 are here in the bunker today for some straight talk in hope of winning the votes of Rockwall County conservatives. I'm Bunker Bob Steinhagen, and this is a special edition of The Bunker Bob Show. Welcome, conservatives, to this special edition of the Bunker Bob Show, and I know that you will be glad you took the time to hear what the candidates running for our local elections here in Rockwall County have to say. I want to give each candidate the opportunity to put their best foot forward, which is why, as I have always done, the candidates received a copy of the questions before they had to decide to participate. Through the magic of video, we create the illusion that both candidates are in studio at the same time. However, each candidate sat down with me for a one-on-one interview, which is edited together to create the illusion that they're here at the same time. This is why I will ask follow-up questions of one candidate, but not the other, and why the candidates do not respond to one another's answers. In fact, the first time either candidate will have heard the answers from their opponent will be after this show has been broadcast. Now, I have never placed time limits on candidates' answers. However, when they go long, and sometimes they do, we will edit it for time. Now, since most candidates are not used to being on camera as they are not professional politicians, in fact, the office for which they are running is actually unpaid positions. So before I begin the interview, I let every candidate know that they can re-answer or restate anything they say because the purpose of today's show is to allow them to be the best that they can be. So let me introduce the candidates for today's show. I want to start with Sherry Packer, who is a community member in Rockwall for over 35 years. She's a grandparent and aunt of current RISD students, and she's a retired educator with over 25 years of experience. And is all of that in Rockwall schools?
It is not.
Okay.
About 18 years
of
that is in Rockwall schools. The other, I served 4 years in another district, and then I was a math consultant, independent math consultant with Region 10 Education Service Center.
Very good.
That is mixed in there as well.
Excellent, excellent. Now, she's a former room mom, PTA president, PTO president, and academic booster club president. She has experience as a teacher, coach, and principal. She has experience with elementary and secondary levels, as well as Quest Academy. You're an independent math consultant with Region 10 Education Service Center. You have a Bachelor of Science in Education, a master's degree in Educational Administration, and a Doctor of Education in Supervisions, Curriculum, and instruction. Now, that's all of the bio part, but let's talk about the things that are really important. You are married to Brett. How long now?
Wow, a long time. In May, at the end of May, we will hit 39 years.
39 years, man.
39 years.
Congratulations. That is fantastic. And you have how many kids?
We have 2 children.
Okay.
Now, at different times in our life, we had foster kids, so we had 2 different foster sons.
And you have grandchildren. How many grandchildren?
We do. We have, as we always say, we have 5 earthly and 1 in heaven.
Yep.
And
I remember that.
Yeah. And so,
and by the way, Sherry is a neighbor of mine, so you live just a few houses down. As a matter of fact,
yeah. So that first loss was a tough one for a long time. Imagine. But our 5 that we have here are phenomenal. We have twins that are 6, 2 girls, and they're just a mess. Then they have a little brother, bless his heart. He's 3. And he has to deal with both of them.
Okay,
And I go there often. They used to live in Arkansas, but now we're glad to say that they are back home in College Station.
So kick him.
Yes.
That is good bull.
They have already started indoctrinating him to the college. They like to ride the bicycles at the university.
Yes.
So anyway, so I go there a lot to see them. And then I have 2 here. Our other daughter lives here.
Nice.
And so we have one that's 3. And we have one that's a year old.
Now, are you from Texas?
Dallas area. I was born in the Grove.
Okay.
So people we used to say we were Grove rats, I think is what I think that's what they called us.
Okay.
I went, until we moved to Wichita Falls, Texas for a short period of time. So I went to school there. But other than that, I was in Dallas ISD schools, graduated from Hillcrest High School.
I see. Very, very good. Okay, and let me introduce Bobby Gallana. Bobby, it's great to have you. Bobby is a graduate of Rockwall High School and a parent of a current RISD student. Bobby is a partner and CEO of Barmetrics. Is that right?
Barmetrics.
Barmetrics of Dallas and NTX Disinfectant. So what is Barmetrics?
Barmetrics is a consulting company, and we consult mainly in the restaurant and bar industry, which has been very interesting over this last year.
Gosh, I can imagine.
Yeah, it's been very busy, and thankfully we are seeing things reopen, and some of these business people that have been suffering for so long get back after business in a normal way.
Wow, that's great. Now, and both of the companies that are Rockwall-based companies.
They are both Rockwall-based companies.
And you also spent time as a business consultant in the DFW area, specializing in hospitality industry, utilizing his background as a former high-level executive with 20-plus years of experience managing multi-million-dollar budgets and leading large, diverse teams. He is also an active member of the Rockwall County Republican Men's Club and is the current vice president of the Rockwall Lions Club. Bobby lives in Rockwall with his wife Alma and daughter Kyla. Did I say that right?
You
Kyla?
got it right.
Well, Bobby, thank you for being here today.
Of course, I'm glad.
I will start by asking questions of each candidate. And Bobby, I'm going to start with you with the first one, and it's a simple one. Why are you running?
Well, obviously my daughter has had a different experience over this last year, and that brought me to get involved, start asking questions, and dig deeper into how our district was run. And what I found is I really, really feel like we need a strong conservative voice on the board that will stand up for what we believe in as conservatives, for traditional family values, for a curriculum that teaches in a conservative manner. And I felt like that conservative voice, a strong conservative voice, wasn't really on the board at the time, and that kind of sealed my motivation. It made my decision for me to run. So,
is there any specific decision that's been made recently that you can kind of pinpoint that pushed you?
Yeah, I mean, the issue with how they handled the mask mandate pushed me a little.
Okay,
to be honest. So.
Yeah.
Not that in the beginning none of us knew what was going on, and we had to do something, so we shut down the district. We instituted a lot of policies, but as we've moved on through COVID, we know that the population, the school children age population, doesn't really transmit, carry, or is not affected by COVID. Very, very small. In fact, right now in the district, there are only 6 cases even after spring break.
Wow.
So it's very little impact, but yet we are impacting these kids' lives in such a crazy way with barriers and distancing and masks. And a lot of parents were concerned about the way that it was handled. It wasn't very transparent. Parents weren't, the advice of parents wasn't really sought. It was teachers and administrators first, which I'm all for protecting our teachers and administrators. But the parents have to have a voice too. They're a big stakeholder in this whole thing, and I really felt like that wasn't being represented well. One, the conservative voice I didn't think was represented well, and there wasn't really a great advocate for parents.
Very good. All right, Sherry, why are you running?
Well, number one, I want to serve the district. I want to serve our community, and my experience in this district has been positive. I think we have a great school district. I think that. When you look at the school board needs to have a lot of different sets of skills. And so I think that I can add a different set. Now, I'm not saying the people that are there aren't good. You need CEOs, you need engineers. I mean, when you think about facilities that you have to build, I mean, you need to depend on different people. And so I think that I know we have one educator on the board and she's up for re-election. I think having another educator, if she is elected back to the board, and having one more educator, I just think, and even within that, the two of us have different skill sets. While she was a counselor and a teacher, I was a teacher, a coach, a principal. So I think that I can give a broad perspective on some things as we start making decisions as a board.
Very good. Very good. So what do you see as the school board's primary role and responsibility? Sherry, I'm going to start with you.
Well, they do several things. They adopt goals, and they've got to make sure that they assess those goals. You know, goals aren't worth anything if you don't go back and look at them
and measure them. Sure,
and
absolutely.
see how they are. They set policies. Now, when they set policies, though, they've got to make sure that their policies that they're setting are within those federal and state laws. You know, and sometimes that's difficult because sometimes my convictions might want me to set a policy that I can't maybe set because of state or federal law. You know, they hire and evaluate the superintendent. They set a budget. I not really set the budget. They adopt the budget. You know, the district kind of puts it all together, brings it to the board, and then the board adopts it or not. Sometimes they'll look at it and say, "Oh, we're struggling in this area, so why are we pinching pennies here?" You know, whatever that may be. But they have the right to have those conversations and ask people to go back and look at that. And then having that communication with the community. And setting the tax rate. I'm sorry. When you look at the budget, you're also thinking about...
That's a big one. That's a very big one.
And then they've got to have, I think school board members have to have that communication with the community. Now, right now, the way that I see our school board having that communication, I see it online with... they post their minutes. They have videos. They post the budget. They listen. People, when they have a school board meeting, people have time to come up and speak to them. I know that they get emails. I can only imagine what happens out in the community. You know, so I think listening to them, to that community, and seeing what does our community want, you know, with our education system. I do think that's important. And then acting on those things if you can.
Very good. Very good. Bobby?
So the school board's role really is to make sure we provide an excellent education and prepare students for the future. But the board itself, they are the elected representatives of the community. And so I really, really firmly believe that the board's number one goal is to engage with the community, to be the community's voice, to be an advocate for the concerns brought to them, and to be open and transparent about the way they conduct business so that we can foster that engagement with the community going forward.
Okay, well that's a good precursor, I guess. It dovetails well into the next question, which is, as a school board member, who do you see as your primary constituent, and how do you intend to make sure that you are listening to their concerns?
Yeah, so our primary constituent, in my opinion, are the parents, and to some degree the students too, obviously. I mean, they both need to be heard. I've interviewed several students throughout this campaign process just to listen, because I feel like sometimes they're forgotten as well in this equation of who all are the stakeholders in this. But that's our primary role. I mean, we really have to make sure that we engage the parents. And I think the more that you're in the community, the more that you're available, the more accessible you are, the more likely you are to foster that engagement. And I'm in the community a lot now. I don't plan to change that. If I can be in the community more, I will be. I want to be easily accessible to parents. I want to be very transparent. So I will be providing weekly updates. I'll be easily accessible by email, by phone, by text. However somebody needs to get a hold of me, I think it's important that it's easy for them and they feel comfortable doing it and they feel heard.
Sherry?
Okay, so I'm an educator, so just hold on with me when I say this, okay?
Okay.
Because some people don't agree, and I know it, but I'm going to explain.
Very good.
I see my primary constituent as a student.
Okay.
Because that's what education is about, is teaching and learn and students learning, okay? But when you think about that, you've got to be responsible with that taxpayer money. You've got to be responsible with how many administrators do you hire? How many people are at central office? How many teachers do you hire? And are you hiring quality people to work with these students? You know, and then in that process, you know, I seldom worked with a student that I didn't work with the parent. I mean, a parent and a student come as a team. So when I look at the primary constituent, it's that student.
When I say who your primary constituent is, whose voices are you going to be listening to the most when you're behind the dais?
The taxpayers.
Taxpayers.
I mean, that's where your communication comes from at that level. You know, so yeah, that should be listened to. I mean, taxpayers. That's everyone involved. Okay, I think it's also important to. I don't want to say give a better voice or a louder voice. I don't mean that, but I mean to make sure you're listening to those parents also that have kids in the schools. You can't get away from their concerns.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Very good. Thank you. How often do you attend RISD school board meetings, and do you feel that the board does a good job of representing constituents? Sherry?
Well, as a former principal,
yeah,
I attended many
I bet you did.
board members. Now, just recently, I have started back.
Okay.
I mean, I was
Of course, it's been online mostly, right?
Yes, it has,
yeah.
and sometimes I've listened. I've listened there, but in the last 2 months, I've been able to go back in person. Yeah. I think that it's difficult for me to pass judgment on how they represent because the part I see is all public. I don't see what goes. They may have conversations in the grocery store with someone, or they may have a group of people email them. I don't see that piece. I don't see what goes on in executive session. So it's difficult for me to really...
Do you feel like the school board's doing a good job? Let me ask that.
I do.
Okay.
I'm telling you, it's been rough. This pandemic, I mean, think of the decisions that they had to make.
Yeah.
And there were times where they were in a no-win situation. There were, I think when we first started and you had hybrid, you've got teachers that are just on edge. They're trying to do virtual learning and teach in the classroom. And it was crazy decisions. And it all came on us so quickly, So looking at all those circumstances, looking at the way that they did stop, I think, and reevaluate some things and make some changes. Yeah, I think they have done a good job with that.
Very good. Bobby, you've actually kind of already talked about that, haven't you?
I have answered it. And it's, I attend board meetings regularly. And I do think there's a little bit of a disconnect currently in how we are representing parents within our district. I do. I think right now it's very one-sided for teachers and administration, and I don't think that should be discarded. But what I do believe is that everybody is an equal part of the equation, and frankly, the people, the taxpayers that are paying into the school district, as what I would call part owners in the district, have a right.
As would I, by the way.
Yeah, have a right to be heard and listened to and considered in decisions, and I feel like that's just a missing piece of the equation for whatever reason right now.
Excellent. In your view, what are the best attributes of Rockwall schools? Bobby, what do you think?
Listen, our schools are great. We have another A rating in that very confusing A to F rating system that the TEA puts out for us, but we were able to achieve it again, and kudos to everybody involved with that. Our schools are up to date. They're modern. They're clean. It's a great place for someone to go to school. And we have really good teamwork in the district amongst schools. There's not an unhealthy competition. It's all healthy. It's a great place to be, and I think we've just got to make sure we buckle down as conservatives to keep it that way for a really, really long time in the future.
Amen to that. Sherry, you should have a list on this, don't you?
I do, but the one I want to focus on the
Sure,
most
yeah.
Is their programs.
Okay.
I think that they offer just a vast amount of programs and try to meet the needs of all students. And I say that because I had my own child that was 504. She had an epilepsy disorder. It caused short-term memory loss. And even then, back in 2004, they were looking for ways to help her. And I think they continue to do that with students. Again, I go back to the Burton Center. That's a prime example. Used to when we first started culinary arts. Okay, if you were in if you were in the high school that didn't have culinary arts, but you wanted the culinary arts, you could either transfer to that school, or I think maybe they would bus you over there. I'm not sure.
Wow.
It was one of the two. Okay. But so now what do we have? We have a place where it doesn't matter where you go to high school. You can go and get that. Well, here's another example. Okay, our SAGE program. When I was a principal,
What is SAGE?
That's a gifted and talented program.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, because I would never be in that. So go ahead. Yeah.
I wasn't either. But for instance, when I was a principal, I always used to wonder, why does that stop at 6th grade? Why don't we continue that gifted and talented and basically I was told, well, right now we have pre-AP and AP, but I think gifted and talented kids need more than just more difficult content. They have some creativity in some other areas, and so now I've learned that a couple of years ago we started Sage English in 7th grade, then we did it in 8th grade, and now next year for the first time we'll have Sage English in 9th grade. So as an educator, that is what I'm drawn to, is how are we educating our kids, and I think that's one of the biggest things.
So let me ask you a follow-up question. You compare Rockwell schools to Dallas schools, and you've got Rockwell schools that are very successful, offer most of the programs that Dallas offers. Why are Rockwell schools so much better? If you don't want to answer that, that's fine. But that's my impression. I think because
I think we draw quality educators to our school district. Now, I will be the first to say that over these last couple of years with the pandemic and everything, our teachers, they are tapped out, and I would be too.
How do you mean?
I think they're worn out because when that pandemic hit, some people may not realize that, a teacher has certain ways that they teach and that they're used to, and they have certain ways that they deliver information better. Well, all of a sudden it's thrown on them about, the pandemic. Now we're going to have to start teaching differently.
Yeah.
And I think they adjusted well, but it was tough.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
It was tough on them, and so I think that it
was tough on everybody, parents, teachers,
and in all districts.
Students. Yeah, everybody.
Oh yeah. I don't mean to slight the parents and the students at
all.
No,
absolutely. But, I don't think you were. But I'm just highlighting the fact that it wasn't just teachers. No. Everybody had to adjust, and those were not easy adjustments.
But you know what made us a good district?
What's that?
Is our teachers rose to the challenge. It was tough, and some of them needed extra help. I would have needed extra help.
Yeah.
Yeah. And those principals, oh my word, the things that they had to do to make sure their teachers had what they needed and felt secure in the way they were having to teach, they rose to the challenge. That's another thing that makes us a good district.
Yeah. Good. Very good. Thank you. What do you see as the biggest challenges facing RISD? Sherry?
Well, I think, and I hate to keep talking about it, but this pandemic, we're going to have some learning gaps. Now, all students aren't going to have learning gaps. I've talked to some that are saying, "Oh, I did great virtually. I'm going to stay virtual. I hope I get to stay virtual."
Really? Wow.
And some in particular that I thought would not do well virtually have done well.
Huh.
And then there's others that I thought would do well that didn't do well, And so I think there are going to be some learning gaps. All students are not going to have learning gaps from this. But for those that do, we've got to figure out how do we maintain still teaching to that high level like we're used to, but filling in the gaps for those students that need those gaps filled. And at the same time, remember, it's not their fault. It's nobody's fault. It's just a situation. So we've got to figure out how to deal with that. But I also think it's timely. It's not something that we can stretch out for a long period of time. We've got to get started on it. Because if you've got gaps and we don't start filling those gaps, then as you try to continue your learning, that gap can either widen or you can have more gaps in little places. So we want to fix. So that's one thing. I also think we're looking at an emotional situation. We've got students that are coming back from a year and a half out of school maybe. And even though they have friends in their neighborhoods or friends outside of school, walking back into that school building after that long a time, that's going to cause some emotional issues. And I think we've got to have counselors trained and people and maybe a level of training with teachers as well, to have everybody ready to meet those emotional issues. We've got students in this district that have lost parents. I know ourselves, we lost a friend who has a student at Heath High School. So there's going to be emotional things there that are going to have to be addressed. And you can't teach a student if their emotional and physical needs aren't met. So that's the two things that I think are really going to be facing us.
Bobby?
So obviously, I think coming out of COVID, we're going to have a really big challenge. One, we need to figure out, educational process has been very confusing for our kids over the last year plus. We have got to figure out, one, where kids are, as far as their learning level right now, because everybody has been delivered education in a little bit of a different way recently, and we need to know where they're at so that kids are going to be behind. We are going to have several kids behind from where they should be because of this situation and because of the fact that we had distance learning that didn't go so well. And we need to figure out where the kids are and then make a plan to get them caught up right away. I saw a study that came out of Stanford that said something similar to this happened in the 60s over in Germany. And those kids, when studied over a lifetime, lost 5 to 10% of their potential income from being behind in school for 1 year.
Wow.
And so we really have to formulate a plan to change the curriculum next year to make sure we get some sort of, the STAR test is the only thing we have right now at this level. Make sure we know where their markers are, and then make a plan to get them caught up immediately. We can't let this hurt them for a lifetime.
Fan of the STAR test? What do you think of that?
I think there's better methods probably than the STAR test, but for now it's what we have. But I'm in favor of some recent legislation that Brian Slayton proposed.
Yeah, that's right.
To shelve that STAR test if you wanted to in the district and come up with a ranking system or a marking system for your students that would work. And I'm all for empowering a district to do that itself.
Excellent. Brian Slayton, good conservative voice for
Absolutely.
Sure. One of the principal duties of the school board is to evaluate the performance of the superintendent and hold him accountable. How will you go about doing that? Bobby?
I think we have to remember that the board employs the superintendent, and the board's vision needs to be held up by the superintendent. And so one, we have to make sure we have the right vision on the board. And then two, we have to make that quantifiable to the superintendent. So anytime you're going to review somebody in performance, it needs to be quantifiable, achievable goals, that we can look to and say, yes, you hit this goal, or no, you didn't hit that goal. Part of that right now is our rating system, our A to F rating system, even though it's confusing, and we are hoping that our conservative legislatures will change the way that thing looks. But for right now, it's how we compete. It's how we compete, for our EDC, it's how they compete to get businesses here, to help get some commercial tax base, to lower all those crazy high school taxes. It's what we have to do. So we have to rate them on that. We have to keep that A status. And there's several things that go into that you can quantify out in a review and say you're hitting the mark or you're not. And we need to be, as a board, transparent with that. We pay a lot of money to the superintendent, and we need to be accountable to the people that are really paying that money.
Use the word transparency.
Yeah.
What does that mean to you?
That means that you can easily look. Right now, when you try to go find something on the RISD website, it is, because I've tried to do it myself throughout this campaign, it's hard to find stuff. It's hard to find data and other things. I don't want it to be that way for parents because, look, everybody's busy. They don't have time to go hunting around. But if we could have a simple dashboard for parents to go to and look at and say, these are our performance markers this month. Here is how we performed on these markers this month. Here's how you can connect with all of your board members. Here's how you can talk to the superintendent about this performance. Right there, one snapshot, very easy. Everybody can go and see what we're doing and what we're trying to accomplish. If they agree with it or they don't, they can comment.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. Sherry?
I will do that. I'm sure. I say sure. I'm pretty sure that there is a process in place to evaluate your superintendent. I can't imagine that there wouldn't be some adopted procedures that you have to go through. But mainly, when superintendents come in, the board sets goals for that superintendent, and so you have to evaluate those goals. I think some of those goals are probably quantitative, and some of those goals are qualitative. But you evaluate those goals, and if those goals aren't met, then again, I'm sure there's a process you go through. I'm not privy to what they have set in place right now. I know that when a teacher doesn't meet their goals, I do either an action plan or I do a growth plan. I always tried to start with an action plan because to me that was less intimidating or less threatening, to just say, okay, you didn't meet this goal, so let's talk about how is this going to get met. So to me, that's how you hold a superintendent accountable is you evaluate those goals and look for their effectiveness. And
very good. Is there a specific issue or set of issues on which you wish to focus if elected? Sherry?
The main thing is special education.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why. As a principal, I always felt like the diagnosticians, some of our special ed teachers, I feel like they were so overworked. and they have such a love to help. I mean, if you saw the paperwork that a diagnostician has to do for a special education student, or the paperwork for a 504 student, it is amazing. And the time that it takes just for that. Now, not to mention the time it takes to test these kiddos.
Now, is that from the state,
yes,
federal government?
That's state.
Okay. Oh, wow. Okay.
If you want to assess those students correctly, then you've got to go through these processes. And when you are trying to meet the individual needs of all those students, and you know, sometimes you look at, oh, well, they only have 6 students in their classrooms, but those 6 students they're working with, they all have 6 totally different needs that teacher's trying to meet. We do have aides in those classrooms, but
you have teacher's aides.
Teacher's aides, yes. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah, teacher's aides in there.
I think most people know what you meant.
But I'm just telling you, teachers as a whole have it difficult. I don't want to slight the classroom teacher at all. I want our teachers to feel more valued, would be the other thing. I think this
How so?
Well, I think that some of them feel that maybe others, the community maybe doesn't think they've done a good enough job. And as hard as they've worked, you know, to try, I'm not so sure they feel valued in that.
What makes you think the community is not in support?
Just things I've heard from teachers,
okay.
and some parents. And some parents, they're not being ugly about teachers.
Yeah.
You know, they're just saying, oh my gosh, we struggled here and here, and I can't believe how many assignments are on there. And, you know, and so it's almost, again, it's one of those no-win situations. But when you're the teacher and you're working and you're working and you're working to try to get it, you know, to get it right. Mm-hmm. And then maybe you keep hearing negative things, maybe emails from parents, you know, or whatever. Over a while, that just wears you down.
Sure.
But I do know that, you know, sometimes when you just get tired, you can feel like you're not valued.
I see.
And I want to make sure that our teachers feel like they're valued.
So what ways would you do that?
I think they're due a raise. That's one thing.
Okay.
Now, I say
the teachers are due a pay raise.
I think they are.
Okay.
To my knowledge, last year they got a bonus, but not a raise. I do know that it's easier to say than I haven't looked at that budget as far as I know that the vast majority of our budget is teacher salaries and facilities, you know. So I think that if you don't take care of your teachers financially, you know, as well as getting them the resources they need and that sort of thing, then I believe at a certain point they just don't feel valued.
It kind of begs the question, if Rockwall schools are so competitive to get in, mm-hmm. Is salary really the best? I mean, is that the indicator of value if there's so many teachers that want to come in?
No, I don't think that's the only thing. I think respecting them as educators, mm-hmm. the fact that they have degrees, they have studied education, they write curriculum. I just think that feeling that respect from parents, from the community, I think that helps them. But right now, I think what it is they're just so tired. Mm-hmm. And I think students and parents are tired too. But I do think that we've got to make sure our teachers feel valued.
Bobby, what do you think?
Yeah, so there's a few things. One, I'm concerned with some of the curriculum that I see going on in ISDs around us. In Carroll, in Dallas, they've got, you know, BLM, Marxist style curriculum invading their schools, similar to what we saw when CARE invaded the schools in California and pushed their curriculum through. And I'm not for critical race theory education in our schools or gender dysphoria teaching in Dallas, where they're teaching their 600 genders now. Those things are immoral to me and not things that a first grader, for example, should be learning like they are in Dallas. So I'm for standing against those things, whether they come through the TEA, the federal government tries to shove them down our throats. I'm for standing against those things. TEA tells us we have to teach to a certain level. You know, a fourth grader needs to know this. They don't tell us exactly what curriculum you have to use to get there. We can go out and get the curriculum. We actually have 300 teachers in the district writing curriculum right now. We can direct how that looks, and we need to stand up and do that. I'm also concerned that we're not doing enough for education in trades. So we have a great opportunity here to partner with some local businesses, to use the Gene Burton Academy, to really push some students towards learning about trades. Not every kid is meant to go to college, and if you go to college and you try to earn a liberal arts degree for $100,000 and turn around and get a job paying you nothing, that's maybe not a good equation to come with. So,
that's right.
So maybe some of those kids will be interested in learning about trades, and we have several people here that are willing to step up and be mentors and help with that program, and we can get kids some industry certifications before they even get out of high school and get them a leg up in the workplace.
Yeah, it's funny. You drive down, what is it, 549, and you see neighbor's house, and he's a roofer.
Yes,
and
pretty successful.
Pretty successful.
Pretty successful.
Yeah, the people who are making most of the money, it seems like, are not the ones with the college degrees, but the people who have a good trade.
Right, they don't have all the debt to pay off, and
that's true.
In our community too, I think we asked for a junior ROTC program here about 3 years ago, and it kind of fell on deaf ears.
Really?
For some reason, we have a wonderful veteran community.
Boy, we
here,
sure do. I'm surprised.
And we have just, it's almost an uncountable number of veterans that are excited about having a junior ROTC that were willing to help out and donate their time, donate money to help it get off the ground. And I don't know why we don't have one here, but it's something we should. Even in the A through F grading system that we have now for schools, you get credit for a kid that goes to college. Mm-hmm. You get credit for a kid that is considered military ready or is enlisted, and you get credit for somebody that has a trade certification when they leave high school.
Wow.
All of it counts the same. So we're solely focused on that college piece right now, and I'm not saying not to focus on that, but the military and the trade piece is equally valuable, in my opinion. We can do a better job there.
Fantastic. I could not agree more. Obviously, the COVID pandemic has had a dramatic and ongoing impact on education. From your perspective, what has been both the downside and upside of this crisis to education, and what do you believe is the biggest long-term impact to Rockwall schools? Bobby?
So I think the biggest long-term impact to our schools, just to start with that, is what I talked about earlier. It's how many students we're going to have behind. And then we are going to have to formulate a plan to get those students caught up. So again, they're not behind for a lifetime. They're not having a disadvantage over something that we can control. I think that's our biggest issue coming out of COVID. It's hard to see an upside with what happened with COVID and the way we handled it, but it has taught us how to be resilient. It has taught us how to fight through something, and it has taught our kids how to be a little more flexible. And it's given them a very hard but probably valuable life lesson that they can go back to and say, it wasn't easy, but I did it. I made it through there. I didn't get to see my friends. I had a crazy experience going to school, but we've got to figure out a way to get kids caught up, and we're gonna have kids that are gonna have. I mean, the mental health issues in kids, school age kids, is through the roof right now. It's through the roof, and we're gonna uncover some of those things when kids are back in school. So we've got to make sure that we don't brush that aside, and that we have our counselors ready to deal with that, and teachers ready to notice things that are going on.
So, this is probably an unfair question, but if you could go back. What do you think we should have done different?
Oh man,
it's a tough question. I realize.
And I appreciate it because I think about it all the time. Like when it first happened, like I said, I don't know that we would have done anything different because none of us knew what was going on.
Right. Yeah.
But I think as soon as we knew the science behind masks wasn't valid, when we knew the transmission rate between school age children was super low,
so low
that I really would have pushed for. If I'd have had a chance to be on the board during that time, I would have been pushing for normal school, for normalcy. I mean, the risk versus what those kids had to go through and all the disadvantages that have come up, the mental health problems in kids, the very weird education that they got over the last year and a half. I wish we'd have opened school normally for them.
When this was going on, obviously the school board met. Did they have emergency meetings, and did you attend any of those or watch, I guess, online?
Yeah, I watched. Yeah. We weren't able to attend. I watched.
Yeah.
But again, the whole transparency pieces, you didn't really see a lot of information on what the discussion was, maybe in executive session or behind closed doors. And I appreciate that they probably had a ton of discussion. I appreciate it, but I really would have liked to see a little more openness when this was going on and a little more involvement from the parents. I mean, they did send out one survey that said, how many of you would like to send your kids to full-time school? And we had such an overwhelming request to send kids to full-time school that they had to come up with a hybrid model.
Okay.
So that should have told you that the community feels differently about what you were doing on the board at the time.
Very good. Sherry?
I think the upside to this was we experienced a different kind of learning that I think is probably on our horizon somewhere.
Okay.
Virtual learning for high school students especially.
Okay.
Not so sure it's there for elementary and middle school, but I do think it's on the horizon for our high school students. The downside is similar to what I've mentioned before. Some students that were all excited about it and thinking, woohoo, I'm going to do great, I think they didn't know how to manage their time well. And so they got themselves in some binds. But other students, I think that, when they thought they were going to do well online, they just simply didn't. Long-term impact is interesting. My dissertation was a comparison study on blended and online learning.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
And so the research out there, now for my study, there was no statistical significant difference regarding it was better to be online or be in a blended situation. I do hope in the future, well, let me back up and say some of it I think depends on what is the TEA going to fully fund? Are they going to fully fund virtual learning next year? And if they do, I would assume that the district would allow students to choose again. I think that once you've made that choice, you need to keep that choice for that grading period. Now if you want to change after that grading period, I'm all for
a grading period. Is that a year or is that a semester?
9 weeks.
Oh, 9 weeks. Okay.
9 weeks, yeah.
Right.
And so, let them make that decision. However, if they do virtual, I am a big proponent of blended learning. Like I said, my study didn't show that significance, but when you go and look at the research, you can find other studies that do show there's a big significant difference between just doing it all by yourself virtually versus also having that time with a teacher. So in my study, I defined blended learning to be about 70 to 80% on the computer, 20 to 30% of the time with the teacher.
Okay.
Now that time with the teacher, for me, is best face-to-face.
Yeah.
But, if that time with the teacher has to be on Zoom, then that's okay too. And see, the thing is, if we were to go this route, your teachers can look at your dashboard on their side and see how you're doing. I see that so-and-so, every time he answered this question, he got it wrong. Or I can see that so-and-so is really struggling with this concept. And so when you do the blended learning, that teacher can either flag you, which means you can't go any further until you've talked to me. Okay. Because, even in the regular classroom, you've got students that won't raise their hands, right?
Right.
So if I'm virtual, okay, well, I might have failed that quiz, but I'm going to go ahead and try this other one. Maybe I'll pass it,
Yeah.
And so if you're really doing blended learning, you're either meeting with that teacher face-to-face or that teacher is flagging you to where you're having to go, oh, man, I can't go further till I talk to my teacher, and you get that teaching that way as well and try to keep you from falling behind as you get further along.
What do you think the long-term impact is for Rockwall schools?
I think, there's going to be a hard decision. If the funding is there, I think the impact is that we're going to have virtual learners. Okay. Now, when that happens, we've got a bond out there right now about some new facilities. I don't know all the details of it, but I know that facilities is part of it that's been discussed. Will we need more facilities if we really have that many virtual learners?
Will learning go back to the way it was before? Sherry, you kind of answered this a little bit already, haven't you?
Yeah, the hybrid model is already gone.
Okay, yeah.
So that's not going to be here. Do I think virtual learning is here to stay? I think it could be. I think for students that attend class, I think we'll go back eventually to the way that we used to teach. And I am sure hoping that happens and truthfully praying, Bob, that happens this coming year. That kids are given that option to go in the school just like you used to, go to classes. Let's get those clubs all started back up. The things that they have been missing socially. Let's get those other extracurricular activities. I mean, I know we have some sports and things like that, but there's other curricular activities that have not been going on. So let's get all that going again and get back normal. But I do believe we're going to have some students that, if given the opportunity, they're going to choose to stay virtual. Now, the only way we would have anything similar to a hybrid model is things like this year when it's time for STAR testing. Okay, so when it's STAR testing time, I'm just going to take 7th and 8th grade, for example. When it's the day for 7th graders, 8th graders will stay at home and learn remotely because right now they need that full space for all their 7th graders, to respect social distancing and all the things that TEA suggests to do. And so that's not a true hybrid model, but I'm just saying it's kind of like that. They'll stay home on those days, but the basic hybrid model I think is gone. I don't expect it to see it again.
Okay, very good. Bobby, what do you think?
I certainly would not vote for the hybrid model to stay here if I am lucky enough to be a representative on the board. I don't think it works for children. I don't think it works for our students at all. I know that my own daughter's experience with that hybrid model was not good. I mean, the time she did go to class, she ended up watching a video of an online learning. I mean, you can imagine that these teachers are doing 2 jobs at one time now. So they're teaching an online class and they're trying to teach an in-class session. And most of them, because they can't work 2 jobs at one time, are teaching online. And then when the kids show up at school, they're showing them the online video. And my daughter said, why am I even going to school? Wow. She loves going to school. But why am I even going? It's not worth it. I could just sit home and watch this video. And so that's why I don't believe in the hybrid model. I know there are some people that might need online education in the future, kids that are sick, kids that are receiving treatment for cancer or for some reason can't go to school, and we need to do a better job to figure that out. But it can't be a hybrid model where we have people hired to teach in-person school trying to teach online. It's a very different thing. And if we're going to do any kind of online school, it needs to be separate and done by a different department and handled the right way. But for me, we've got to get kids back in school normally in August, and there should be no other discussion other than how we exit this COVID nonsense to get kids back in school in a normal fashion. That's got to be the board's number one thing going forward. And
that'll be your number one thing,
yes, it will
I'm
be.
guessing. Okay, very good. Neighboring Garland Independent School District allows parents to choose which school their child attends. How would you feel about giving that right to RISD parents? Bobby?
So I am for school choice. Look, I believe that competition always fosters growth in anything. And if those people that are afraid to let parents choose are just afraid that their school may not live up to what the parent wants. So I think having choice is going to foster competition. It's going to make every school better because you're going to you're not just going to get something given to you. The student is not just given to you anymore. You have to earn it. And so I fully believe that we have got to do that because it's going to make us better.
Sherry?
Now, we do have an intertransfer process in our district where you can complete a form and tell why you want to go to another school. And so that's in place.
Okay.
Well, one of the things I think about, my first question to myself is why would people want to make a choice of a different school, than their area? One of the things that our district has worked very hard on and is proud of right now is that we have a guaranteed viable curriculum, meaning that regardless of the school, whether you are at Linda Lyon or whether you are across town at Stevenson, you're offered the same curriculum. Teachers are given the same resources to pull from. So you should be able to walk in any classroom and say, I'm just going to pick a science class, okay? And whatever they're teaching in 5th grade science class at one school, they're going to be teaching in another school. Now, that took a lot of work to make sure that the resources are available to every campus, and to write your curriculum that way. So your content and your teaching, is the same.
While it's true, you may have the same curriculum, and this is true with pretty much every school district. The middle school curriculum is the same in all of the schools, but there is certainly a disparity between the schools that are ranked as excellent as versus those that are not highly ranked, which I think is a motivation for some parents to choose the better performing school. So,
yes, but I think what you have to ask yourself, regardless of the school you're in,
right?
Okay, are my students' needs met? Is my student getting what they need at that school?
My child.
My child. Yes, my child.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is my child. Because there are so many things that go into the ratings of those schools. And so when I had my girls in school, and I know that was a long time ago, but even when I had my foster sons, okay, and even now my grandson, my question is that child, is my child's needs being met? If my child's are being met, Bob, I'm going to be honest with you, okay? I'm not worried about the rating of that school.
Right.
Because my child, there are so many things that go into those ratings. And so it's about my child. Is my child getting the education? And you know, if you don't feel like your child is getting the education at the level that they're supposed to be getting it, then you have the right to go through that transfer process.
Okay. Very good.
And I'm glad our district has that transfer process, because there are some times that you might need to change.
Yeah. The next question is about gun-free zones. Churches have been removed as designated gun-free zones in Texas, and last June, delegates to the Rockwall County Republican Convention unanimously adopted the platform plank that I presented, actually, opposing them, specifically the Federal Gun-Free Zones Act of 1990, which prohibits law-abiding citizens from carrying guns on public school property. This platform position was adopted by delegates of the Texas Republican Party, is now part of the state party platform and national party platform. If Republicans are successful in repealing the act, would you support the Second Amendment rights of law-abiding citizens to lawfully carry a firearm on public school property? Why or why not? Sherry?
Oh, boy. Okay. You have to learn from history, okay? And it saddens me deeply when I look at things that have happened in our public schools.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you what I am for. I am for certain teachers that will volunteer to be trained and carry a firearm. I'm in favor of that. I think we've got to be extremely careful, keep those guns locked up. You know, there's got to be some protocol that a district has, okay, for that. Because unfortunately, we need that layer of protection. Never in my life did I think I would ever say that as an educator, but we do. We need that layer of protection. I don't have a problem if someone has a license. A license, thank you.
Yeah, to carry holder.
Yeah, if they're in my parking lot picking up a child or something like that. Where it gets difficult, Bob, is if someone walks in my school, even though they're a license holder with a gun in their holster or whatever, because I don't know if they're a license holder. Yes, I can ask for that, but I'm going to tell you that opens up all kinds of issues. You know, somebody.
But if it's concealed and you don't know.
Oh, and I don't know. Mm-hmm. Well, unless we get metal protectors and stuff like that, I don't know that we would ever know anyway. You know, so, you know, if it's a law-abiding citizen, I don't really have a problem with it. But where my fear is that it might make it easier for a non-law-abiding citizen to get in with one. But as it is right now.
Yeah, how hard is that now?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
As it is right now, they can. Anyway, so I think the main thing here, the big focus is, I do think we have to have some teachers that are prepared. I don't think it needs to be forced on teachers. I think it needs to be a volunteer situation. Right,
and part of that is that only the teacher and the administrator knows who is and who isn't.
I think about the air marshals.
You think about the air marshals on the planes?
Yeah. That's kind of how I see it.
No one knows who it is.
That's right.
But they're there.
Yeah. I do think that if people know that that's the situation, people that are wanting to harm might think again before they do it. Yeah. You know.
Bobby, what do you think?
I'll just give you a big yes on that one.
All right.
Support it. Look, schools are such soft targets now.
They are.
Right? And these people, these evil people that go in and attack schools, they know they're a soft target. Why do you think they pick them so readily? It's because there's no one to defend them. They know it's going to take, there's a resource officer that's going to be outgunned, outmanned, unfortunately, and they know it's going to take a long time for somebody to respond and quick enough to find them and eradicate the situation. So we have got to empower teachers, administrators, parents to use their Second Amendment right to make our schools more of a hard target. They're just a soft target now. It makes no sense to have a place where so many innocent people need to be protected to be so soft.
Amen. Awesome. You know, RISD posts 9 outcomes that they hold as a goal for every graduate. If you were forced to choose one and only one outcome from the list that best reflects your hope that every student might take away, which would it be and why? Bobby?
So there's one in there that talks about resilience in education, and that one's important to me. I want our kids to come out of school more mature, more resilient, especially the ones that are going to go to college, because they're going to go to a college where they're going to get indoctrinated into a massive liberal left world.
Yes.
And I want them to be resilient enough and steadfast enough in their beliefs and mature enough to withstand that and come out and still be who they were when they left here.
Sherry?
Mine would be, I looked at all of those, and I'll tell you, it was hard, okay?
Yeah.
I kept going back and forth. I was like, why is he making me just choose one? That's rude.
It is rude.
But I came back with college and career readiness.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
Is because college and career readiness, when you look down the rest of that list, if they're college and career ready, they have most of those other things. They're going to be innovative. They're going to be problem solvers. They're going to be ready for, have some of those other characteristics that are listed in those other goals. They're even going to be, there was one on there about a self-learning plan. Okay, if I'm college or career ready, I should be able to put a plan together. Matter of fact, I told you we had foster sons, and we've met with one of them just recently who's really been kind of struggling. And what we told him is what you're doing right now is you're using some of your problem-solving skills to decide, okay, this is not what I want. Okay, this is not good for me. So now here, and now he's got him a plan, and he's ready to go. And so even though he went straight into college, you know what? He decided college wasn't for him. I'm glad he decided it early.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so now he's doing some other things, but he has a plan. And so that's why I would choose college and career ready, is because I think so many of those other goals under there have to be present in order for you to be college and career ready.
Very good. Well, I appreciate both of you for the time that you've taken to answer these questions. And I want to give each candidate the opportunity to basically speak directly to you, the voter. So, Sherry, I'm going to start with you. Tell the voters why they should choose you as their next board member.
Listen, I am a conservative Christian lady. My conservative values are very important to me. I believe I'll be a great fit for this school board. I said earlier that I think there needs to be a variety of skill sets on the school board. I think I just add another one. I think that I'm not saying that we don't need CEOs and accountants and that sort of thing, because we certainly do. But I think that I would add another piece to that school board that would be important. Listen, my education experience, I have been in the trenches. I've been a teacher. I've had students in the district. I've been a principal. I've been a coach. People laugh at that, but I actually was a coach for my first few years of teaching. But I need your vote. I want you to vote for me. I'm going to use the taxpayer money wisely. The most important thing to me is that we continue to offer a great education to our students, and that we keep those conservative values in Rockwell ISD. So on May 1st, or better yet, April 19th, make sure you're voting for Dr. Sherry Packer, place 1.
Bobby, why don't you speak to your voters right now?
Yeah, first of all, thank you again for having me here today. It's been a pleasure.
Sure.
Look, we have election coming up May 1st that is vitally important to our community. We have attacks coming from the liberal left all the time against school districts all around us, and in no time they'll be here. Our kids can't learn about 600 different genders. They can't be taught critical race theory. We don't need biological males in women's sports. And we need to stand up as conservatives for what we believe in. We have a chance to control that curriculum at a local level. We can stand for our parents and be advocates, and we can stand for our students. Or we can continue with what we're doing now, where there's an uneven balance between teachers and administrators versus parents. I want everybody to be an equal stakeholder in this community, in our schools. It's vitally important. Schools are the foundation of our community, in my opinion. They really set the foundation for who we are as a community. People come here, they seek our schools because they're great. But we're going to have to fight really hard to keep them that way over the next decade or so. We need to be better at teaching trade certifications to our kids. We can't have, everybody isn't meant to go to college, get in debt $100,000 and get a degree that maybe doesn't do anything for them in the long term. So let's give some of these kids a chance to earn certifications. We all saw it with the last snowstorm, I think that we already have a shortage in trades, and imagine what it'll be like a decade from now if we don't do something about it right away. So we need a junior ROTC program here. There's no reason not to have it. We've asked for it for 3 years, and it's a great way to introduce kids to our military. And I will stand tough for your conservative voices. I will be an advocate for parents, and I will make sure we get back to school regularly in the fall right away. So I'd appreciate your support, appreciate your vote. Early voting is April 19th to the 27th, and the election is May 1.
Well, I want to thank both of the candidates for being here today. Obviously, these are tough questions, but what I appreciate most is their willingness to answer them. That's what Straight Talk is about, and that's what we need on the school board, are people who are willing to speak straight to you, the voters. So don't forget to get out and vote. This is a privilege that so many people around the world do not have. So take this time seriously. Make sure you share this video with others who have the opportunity to vote, and make sure that they're informed as well. So I want to thank both of you for being here today, and hope that we will see you at the polls.